Good afternoon to everybody and a very warm welcome to this workshop on women entrepreneurs through COVID times. So my name is Maarit Nyman and I'm working as a Deputy Head of Unit on SME Strategy and Entrepreneurship at the European Commission, and I will be moderating this panel today. So if we start with a few words on the format of this session. So we will have in total 1 hour and 10 minutes ahead of us. And we will start with four short presentations from us who I will present in a moment. And of course, we try to make this session as interactive as possible. So it means that we will be running polls in between these presentations where we ask you to react to two questions that we will be presenting a little bit later during the session. And then there will also be graphic recordings that will be done throughout the session. So this is also something that you will see later on. And of course, after the presentations and the polls and the discussion on the poll results, we will be having a question and answer session. So you are also very welcome to ask your questions and also give your comments, anything that relates to the presentations that you will be hearing. This afternoon. And then at the end, I will close the workshop with short conclusions. So if we move on to the substance of today's discussion, so the objective today, of course, is to explore the different obstacles that women entrepreneurs are facing in this current COVID crisis. And of course, look into the different ways, policy measures, strategies that have been put in place to reduce these obstacles and address these difficulties. And as you might know, at the Commission level, the activities that we are doing in favor of SMEs and entrepreneurs are part of the SME strategy that the Commission adopted in March this year. And it's a very comprehensive package of different policy measures which aim at helping entrepreneurs and companies to face the twin challenge of becoming digital, sustainable, getting better access to markets, better regulation, better access to finance also. And it's really an example of a very inclusive strategy, which is targeted to everybody, all entrepreneurs, including women. And of course, on top of the SME strategy, there are a number of different crisis measures and policies. And of course, our common challenge is that in all these strategies and actions, women entrepreneurs are mainstreamed within them. And then we will also use this session to showcase good practices. There are plenty of them. So examples on how women are adapting and responding to the challenges that are brought by the COVID crisis. So this is also one important objective for this session. So I will briefly present you the speakers that we have here today. So we will start with a presentation from Helle Neergaard, who is a professor of entrepreneurship at the Aarhus School of Business and Social Sciences at Aarhus University in Denmark. And she's also the chair of the WEgate advisory board. So welcome, Helle.
Thank you.
Then we have Anne Boring, who is the assistant professor at the Erasmus School of Economics at Erasmus University in Rotterdam. And she's also the head of Women Business Chair at Sciences Po in Paris. So welcome, Anne.
Thank you.
Then we have Paloma Lozano, who is a co-founder and managing director of Innogate to Europe, and also a very active member of WEgate community. So welcome, Paloma.
Thank you.
And then last but not least, we have Ezra Givrak, who is the former head of SME and Women Banking Group at Garanti Bank. So welcome to all speakers.
Good evening.
Yes, that
Thank you.
We start directly with the first presentation. So that will be Helle, who will be presenting to us the challenges that women entrepreneurs are facing and also of course, give some insights on how the COVID impacts these challenges for women entrepreneurs. So, Helle, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Could we have the presentation, please? Yeah, okay, there it is.
Yeah.
So my agenda for today is to briefly address the challenges that women entrepreneurs generally meet. Then I'll talk a bit about how COVID may exacerbate these challenges before I move into talking about what I think is necessary to address these challenges. Now, I come from Denmark, and Scandinavian countries are often looked upon as front runners for equality. However, I think this is actually a truth that should be taken with a pinch of salt, particularly when it comes to creating equal conditions for women entrepreneurs. In Denmark, we have a very low number of women entrepreneurs. Only 1 in 4 entrepreneurs is a woman, and it's actually been like that since the early 1980s, so decades. And this fact, to me, gives rise to the following observation: that the narrative that we have in our society favors a certain type of entrepreneurs, and that women make choices as entrepreneurs that do not actually fit into this paradigm. Next slide, please. So if we look at the current challenges for entrepreneurs, what characterizes women's choices when establishing an entrepreneurial venture is, for example, solo venturing, few employees, sectoral concentration in low-margin sectors. They tend to value less capital-intensive profit before scale, organic growth, and they lack support that caters for these characteristics. And the result is that women do not fit into the dominant paradigm of technology-based businesses and fast-growing ventures. And therefore, they do not receive the kind of support that they need to consolidate and grow their businesses. Next slide, please. So how does COVID exacerbate these challenges? It definitely does. It's an unequivocal yes. So when you operate a micro enterprise, you are more vulnerable to fluctuations in the economy, and COVID has hit hard. The women entrepreneurs that I have spoken to prior to this talk, they still have very few orders on their books because bigger companies have reduced, for example, their training activities. Further, in many countries, home working has become a requirement, and concurrently, nurseries and schools have been closed down. In this situation, the care work in the home mostly falls on the shoulders of the women, regardless of her work commitments. So if you are an entrepreneur, if you're a woman entrepreneur, the business suffers. On top of all this, most support measures during COVID, at least in Denmark, and also in some other countries where I've been talking to some researchers there, they've been tailored for businesses with employees and with a certain turnover. Entrepreneurs who have been able to convert their businesses to online sales quickly may have profited, but the sectors in which women entrepreneurs are generally found, they often require personal interaction that cannot really be converted to online. Also, support has been limited to the time during which the companies have had to close fully down, not taking into consideration that after 3 months of little or no business, it might actually be very difficult to regenerate and revitalize your business and get your customers back. In this situation, women just tend to close the business down. So in the short term, this has personal costs, but in the long term, it will actually also have societal costs. And I think we will see fewer women entrepreneurs if we do not address these challenges. So it's important not to lose sight. Next slide, please. So it's important not to lose sight of the long term in order to plug the short-term holes. Support measures should, in my opinion, address both simultaneously. A provision, for example, of micro grants or micro loans with no interest would serve this goal, as would the provision of government-supported and government-regulated childcare. There's also a need to support co-working spaces or incubators by and for women so that they can actually receive gender-inclusive support targeted at their particular challenges, as well as gender-inclusive network opportunities. A further provision could include providing training for business advisors, funding agencies, and banks in how to be more gender sensitive. And in all this, we have to remember that what benefits women will actually also ultimately benefit those men who fall outside the dominant paradigm, because there are many men who actually have the same priorities and the same and conduct their businesses in the same way as women do. But they are not technology-based, and they're not, and they don't grow in the same way as the technology-based ventures do. So we could also help them in this in the same run. So the next slide, which will be the last. So the dominant paradigm in entrepreneurship that has been perpetuated since the turn of the century is that of technology-based businesses and fast-growing ventures. The grand narrative is that women just have to fit in to this paradigm and undertake entrepreneurship in the same way as men. They need to move into technology sectors, and they need to put scale before profit. In other words, it's very much been about fixing the women. But women do not see themselves in this grand narrative. So if we want to change anything in the long term, we need to change the practices underlying this narrative to become more inclusive of businesses that fall outside this paradigm. We need to fix the system so that it becomes inclusive of other types of entrepreneurship than the currently dominant one. In order to accurately address this challenge, we need to understand women entrepreneurs much better than we do today. So my message is, we need to ask the women what they need. And this could be achieved through a concerted, perhaps even trans-European effort at generating information, qualitative as well as quantitative. And then, hopefully, we will see more women entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helle, for your presentation. I suggest that we continue directly with Anne's presentation, and then afterwards we have a small or short break with the question. So Anne, please.
Thank you very much. Let me just make sure that I am unmuted. Yes, so I can put back the presentation. Thank you very much. I'm going to give a slightly different perspective than Helle. I'm going to talk a little bit about the consequences in terms of competition on different markets for women entrepreneurs given the COVID-19 crisis. One thing that we have seen since the month of March is that women's labor force participation has been hit hardest by the COVID-19 crisis compared to men's. So more women have become unemployed because of this crisis than men have in different economies. There are several reasons to this. One main reason, of course, is that a lot of women have been forced out of the labor market because of care duties that they could not outsource outside of the household anymore. But another main factor that has been driving this higher unemployment for women is the fact that a lot of the high contact service sectors tend to include a lot of employment by women. So the gender segregation of labor on the labor markets suggests that there are some sectors that in which there are a lot of women who have been employed that have been more heavily hit. So we can think about tourism, restaurants, for instance, and of course, non-food retail. A lot of these sectors are also the sectors in which not only women are employed, but in which women are also entrepreneurs. So what is likely to happen is that there might be an increase in women's interest for entrepreneurship in these sectors, but this is likely to increase the competition amongst women, but amongst entrepreneurs in general, but especially amongst women, given their high share in these sectors. This can have positive and negative effects, of course. So it could have some positive effects because it might, the fact that they're entering sectors that are more stereotypically female can actually help them gain financing. I'm going to cite some research by Camille Hebert, who's been working on the factors driving discrimination behaviors among equity investors, for instance. And in her research, she shows that female startup founders are on average less likely to raise capital from external equity investors. So this is finding that by now is quite well known. But in male-dominated sectors, women are less likely to contract with investors. However, in the female-dominated sectors, female entrepreneurs are more likely to raise capital than male entrepreneurs. So to some extent, those women who will be entering the female-dominated sectors in entrepreneurship might benefit from this gender stereotype. Of course, in the long run, perpetuating stereotypes is not something that is positive for women, especially since those sectors are more severely hit by the COVID-19 crisis. So one of the takes that I would like to emphasize is that if we want to reduce the gender stereotypes in entrepreneurship and in financing, and if we want for more women to be successful in entrepreneurship, we must absolutely increase the share of women who are in the STEM fields. There are a lot of experiments that suggest that given the right conditions, women are actually really interested in the STEM fields. But right now, they're not going into the STEM fields for several reasons, but a lot of the reasons are related to gender stereotypes. On this graph, I show you OECD data of the percentage of women inventors in different OECD countries. And as we can see, there are very few women compared to men who are inventors. And one of the main reasons for that is because there are still too few women who are trained in the STEM fields. On this final graph that I'm showing to you, you can see the percentage of employed persons with an information, communications, and technology education by sex. This is more long run, but if we want to make sure that more women can be successful in a larger set of sectors in the economy, then we absolutely need to invest more in education that is related to the STEM fields. I am at 4 minutes 53, so I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you very much, Anne, for your presentation. And I suggest that we take now the first poll question, which should appear on your screens very shortly. And the question, I can read it to you so that you know the question that is coming. So the question is that in COVID times during the confinement, who do you think showed greater work-family conflict? And the first option is men, and then the second option is women. So please participate and give your opinion. And we can come back to the results of this question after Paloma's presentation, who of course touches upon these aspects of work-life balance and also other important issues for women. So Paloma, please.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. So I will speak as a woman entrepreneur myself, a business owner in the services sector, micro-enterprise, such as the large majority of SMEs are in liberal professions and services provision. And also, from my perspective, from what I observe on providing support and advice to other professionals in my environment, especially women entrepreneurs. I will now share some thoughts and opinions on 3 topics. First one is access to finance. Second one is new working patterns. And the third one, entrepreneurial competences. So on the first topic, access to finance, I think this has been extensively covered in other sessions, and also our next speaker will also tap into it. So I will go straight to some action points that come to my mind in this regard. And I really think there is a very wide array of diverse sources of finance that are available for entrepreneurs, for men and for women. And sometimes the problem here is, I think, a lack of financial literacy and preparedness to get those funds. So not all companies are investment ready. You must have a clear business case to receive funds. And I think basic support is needed here for business planning, targeting the right kind of funding, and having legal and financial advice. And this legal and financial advice is especially important, I think, when we talk about new funding sources such as crowdfunding and peer-to-peer lending, that I think can be especially attractive for women who tend to be not willing to take much risk or share equity, but they are little used because of lack of knowledge. And also, I'd like to note that I know there are funds coming from the EU, and more will come with the recovery plan, that are leveraging what the financial intermediaries are offering to the entrepreneurs as loans and credits. But this EU support is often invisible for the beneficiaries. So I think it would be really important to make it visible, promoting it at ground level. So not from high up, from the institutions, but the staff at the intermediary financial institutions and the banks should tell more about this leverage that they are offering to entrepreneurs. Because I hear so many times that entrepreneurs are coming to us saying, I have a business idea, I know there are European funds for me, but they cannot see where they are, and still they are coming through the banks. And just to finish on this first point, I think there is a very big problem with liquidity now, especially because of COVID times for companies to survive and to recover. But liquidity is an issue that's always outstanding for so many companies. So small companies often do not have large financial needs, but small needs to face the need to cover a one-time investment or to face cash flow issues, for example. So liquidity should always be there, ready to help entrepreneurs keep their businesses alive. But apart from funding, a lot of change is happening also for those companies that have not been severely hit by the crisis, or not yet. They are facing new challenges, and this leads me to my next point, which is new working patterns. Important effects are coming from the way we are working in the new context that can have an impact in our efficiency and productivity in the long run. This is especially significant for women, and here I refer to preliminary data from a recent research study carried out by a Spanish university, Universidad Complutense de Madrid, on the psychological impact of the pandemic, specifically of confinement, including a gender perspective. According to the results, in general, women showed poorer psychological health, higher levels of anxiety and depression, and greater work-family conflict. So here we have a great new challenge for companies managing the emotional health of workers and the appropriate design of telework. Not all people adapt and accept it equally. It depends on gender and also on individual characteristics, but there is a big challenge here. And even companies that were used to remote work are facing difficulties now because suddenly most people are working remotely without having the necessary skills to do it. And I'm not talking about technical or digital skills that I think are quite easy to overcome here, but soft skills, meaning knowing how to work from home and not intrude or cause excessive added pressure on others. Some action points that I can outline here are organizational change. So we should systematically be adapting our working patterns to ensure that they are sustainable, more human, and build a working culture that fits the new context. Business-wise, this is to avoid burnout and preserve productivity and efficiency in our teams. And also, both from a private and public level, we must all tackle work-family conflict. It is still mostly suffered by women, sadly, and enforced teleworking and this pandemic have shown that work-life balance is a pending issue that companies and public authorities will have to pay attention to even more now. And very quickly on my last point, which is entrepreneurial competences, I think it is essential for men and women to build and develop from very early ages entrepreneurial competences, among others, resilience, coping with ambiguity, so important now. So I would like to mention here the Entrepreneurship Competence Framework, Entrecomp, which lists and develops 15 entrepreneurial key competences. One of them is self-awareness and self-efficacy, which is, I think, is very different for men and women. And here I can put as an example the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs program. I'm not explaining it now because I have little time, but just to name a few figures coming from these programs. So if we look at the new entrepreneurs that are participating, around 50% are men and 50% are women, which is very good. But if we look at how many host entrepreneurs are participating, and these are experienced entrepreneurs with more than 3 years experience running their own business, then around 73% are men and around 27% are women. So why? There are a number of reasons behind those figures, but I think there is an important issue here, which is that with the same experience and position, men feel more confident, or in general, men tend to feel more confident to mentor and serve as an example, as a role model. They tend to feel more successful than women do. So there is a problem of perception here, of self-esteem. And I think this calls for, if you want to call them soft measures, like awareness raising, and also other measures like mentoring, coaching, training, capacity building, networking, community building, all tackling the reinforcement of competences, and namely entrepreneurial competences. So if we look at what's happening, the SME strategy, I think, covers all those issues. If we look at WEgate, the European Gateway for Women Entrepreneurs, and you look at the website, the structure, it is all there. But I think it's just a matter of that we all, from the public sector and the private sector, keep promoting initiatives covering all these points and supporting and funding these initiatives. And just if I can use last minute to finish on a positive note, I'd like to mention a success story, a company led by a woman entrepreneur. The company is called Grey Glasses, and the founder and CEO, Marta Frena, it is a Spanish company. This company is based on a new generation of optical experts, and they are selling affordable prescription glasses online with a great design. In their case, the pandemic has generated a boost in their online sales because during the hardest months of confinement, they were the only ones with a virtual fitting room on the web, and they attracted a lot of demand. So according to what their CEO told me a couple of days ago, they are closing now their second investment round, and they are thriving and happy. So there is hope, and there are a lot of success stories and good companies out there thriving even in spite of the crisis. And I will stop here. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, Paloma, for your presentation. We have had, in the meantime, the results of the poll, and as you can guess, the results are quite obvious and speak for themselves. So the question was, who do you think showed greater work-family conflict in these COVID times? So for men, 12.9%, you voted for 12.9%, and women 87.1%. So it's quite obvious, of course, that the burden falls disproportionately on women. And actually, I have one question, Paloma. When women are living through the COVID crisis with their businesses and of course with their family obligations. And we have there is this conflict between the work and the family. are there any good practice initiatives that have been kind of developed from bottom up on how to deal with this conflict? So my question is this: at the same time, how do public authorities face this situation? I mean, do you have this private work-life balance in the measures that you have, for example, in your country, or do you see them also integrated in policies in other countries?
Yes, I think this is an issue that has been spotted and tackled over the last decades already. And yes, I think there are many good practices, for example, coming from large companies that have clear human resources policies. So, for example, simple measures like not calling meetings after a certain time, or having the bosses go home before a certain time. But many of those measures were designed thinking about an office environment. So now that not everybody's at the office, in fact, very few people are at the office, I think these measures, which were working quite well, have been relaxed, and we are facing even more trouble because we are all home and our kids are here and there's lunch to do and lots of things, and the pressure, I think it's mental pressure, falls more on women. So I think there are measures coming from public authorities, from companies, from small companies. I think it's a matter of work-life balance in general. So family or no family, kids or no kids, allowing time for everybody to deal with their personal sphere. And now when we are working from home, it gets much harder. But I think small things can make a difference, and leading by example.
Yes, indeed, and I think, of course, it relates directly to these new working methods that you were speaking about in your presentation. That we have to progressively develop, because we are indeed working in a very, very different conditions. I don't know if the other speakers have any comments on this work-life balance and the impact of crises.
So I ran a survey in France. Yes, thanks. I ran a survey in France about this, and what was quite interesting is that indeed, so there were a larger share of women who were impacted by the COVID lockdown measures, but a lot of men have been too. And when you look at the share of individuals who are working in jobs that can be done from home, actually quite a lot of jobs that are held by women can apply working from home. And also a substantial share of men also have declared an increase in their mental load during lockdown measures. So of course, the impact is larger on women, and we do see an increase in the time that women have to spend on childcare, especially. But the men are also having this pressure. So there might also be consequences in terms of the extent to which men and women both feel equally now the urge to work on these work-life balance issues. So we'll see how things go.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. So I suggest that we move on and we take the poll question number 2, which is actually leading to our last presentation that Ezra will give to us. So access to finance, of course, has been already mentioned by the previous speakers, and it's a very topical issue in this current crisis. And the poll question number 2 asks you, are financial institutions responsive to the needs of women entrepreneurs? And actually, what we are asking you to do is to rate, give a rating to how you feel the degree or level of responsiveness. So number 1 indicates it's the lowest score that you can give, and number 5 is the highest score. So you will have this poll question appearing on your screens very shortly, and then I suggest, as we did previously, that we continue with the presentation. So Esra, please, on women and access to finance.
Hi, good evening. Actually, this is almost 7 in Turkey, Istanbul. So good evening and good afternoon to everyone. I'm the last presenter of today, last presentation of today, and I throughout the day I try to follow all the discussions, and was very good. And Anne's, Paloma's, and Helle's. All their presentations were really very good. So actually what I will mention will be a little bit repetition, so I'll skip some parts. We all know that there are long-lasting problems about gender parity, global economic parity, gender gap. There are long-lasting problems. The most important part of it, as you said, from the point of view of financial institutions, is woman entrepreneurship ratio is only 30% globally, and in my country it is 1/10. It just came to 9%. And as Helle said, that in Denmark it is almost 25%, but in Turkey it's really low, and it was 5% 12 years ago, 10 years ago, when Garanti Bank has started Women Entrepreneurship Program. So that's very significant from the economic perspective. Although 30% is still very low, there are geographic differences, of course, in this access of women entrepreneurship ratio. So how do financial institutions contribute to close this gender gap? As banks or financial institutions, most of them has many branches. For example, in Turkey, where I used to work, Garanti has almost 1,000 branches over a large geography, overall Turkey. So we had the opportunity to meet women entrepreneurs, and as central at head office, we had the tools to generate all of this information, use this information in order to provide more tools for women entrepreneurs. So when women entrepreneurs are empowered with tools, knowledge, and financial opportunities, of course, economies grows, prosperity increases, and in the end, all everyone wins. On the other hand, from the point of view of financial institutions, I have observed that most of the banks or financial institutions handle this as a responsible banking issue or corporate communication issue, and this has been a little bit mismanaged in that sense, because this is not only, of course, it has a responsible banking approach or sustainability perspective, but also it is an untapped market, and it has to, understanding women entrepreneurs will increase the number of clients, will help the financial institutions to acquire new clients. So this has been a dilemma of many of the financial institutions throughout the years, because it requires some investment, and measuring the return is not so easy, because it has a community impact which can return in the long run. So nevertheless, for Garanti, it has not been an obstacle, because the bank has engaged in this as a cultural issue. So it has been now more than 13 years that Garanti Bank is persistently, in a sustainable way, managing this women entrepreneurship program. But in the beginning, how it began, it was really derived from the needs and also the low ratio of women entrepreneurs in the country. So throughout time, Garanti Bank's approach has been very important to be a very, very important best case for the other banks, not only within Turkey, also within the region. And the strength of this model was the 4 pillars it was built on. The first pillar was encouragement. So how can a financial institution encourage women entrepreneurs? Of course, financial institutions or banks has some means to introduce role models, the successful models to the other women entrepreneurs by online and offline events. And second, as we all mentioned, access to finance. So special loan bundles, special pricing. Women are risk averse, so they don't want to borrow. It's not only because, actually, it's not because the banks doesn't want to finance them. I don't think there is such kind of a barrier. But the problem is women are risk averse. They don't want to. They don't want, maybe for some reasons, financial problems in financial literacy, or because of the growth potential, but they are risk averse. They are more precocious in that sense. So they need to be encouraged to be to get finance, and also not only financing is sufficient. It's important for them to teach them how to use these funds. So, as Paloma said, train them for financial literacy, and also teach them how to use funds, how to also borrow the right kind of loan for the project. So this has been an important part of the program as well, training and mentorship. And in that, we collaborated with that NGO, Turkish Women Association, and also with universities, and we prepared a thorough, good program for training, financial training of women entrepreneurs. And the last pillar is about the growth, because most of the problems arose because of the inability to find new markets. So as a bank, we opened our network to encourage women entrepreneurs to find new customers, and also organize events with trade associations. So these 4 pillars worked out very well to build a sustainable women entrepreneurship program for the bank. But nevertheless, we had some lessons learned, of course, throughout these years as a financial institutions. So the critical factors for financial institutions to target this market is organizational alignment and, of course, persistence of the program. It shouldn't be just 2 years, 3 years program. It should have long-lasting effects, impact. And also, it's not only a responsibility of SME department or any department or a corporate communications department. It should be a culture from top to bottom and also from bottom to top. That has been a very important factor in the success of Garanti. Of course, a different approach for sales and marketing, product service customization, non-financial services, as I said, training, a distinct branded targeted communication. Women need to understand that this bank is taking care of their needs. So that is also important for a successful model. And the last but not the least is data. Because in all of our women entrepreneurship programs throughout these years, we struggled with finding good research data And also we try to mine our data, collect the data, analyze the data, and try to understand certain patterns, try to understand the networks within the data. So this has to be given a special focus, I believe. Of course, from then on, with the relevant data, with the insights from this data, customer management strategies has to be enhanced by time. So these are all the critical success factors of building a successful business model for women banking. But now, after COVID, of course, as I said, we had long-lasting problems, but now we have different kind of problems, maybe worsened what we had already experienced. Other speakers has already mentioned most of them, but I will go into details how a bank can convert, how a bank can help to overcome these barriers. When we say banks or financial institutions, we always concentrate on funds. So that is banks and finance and funds, or it's the nature of business. But with digitization, banks are not only finance hubs right now. They are also software providers. They are also the institutions that help you to grow your business. It should be in that way. So what a bank can do, along with the challenges of women entrepreneurs, these time constraints, trying to access the new markets, trying to find the right networking hubs, and trying to access knowledge, access to finance. So what can be done as a solution? As of course, there are some enablers like connectivity, hardware, online guidance, data issues, rating models, ecosystem collaborations. All will help to realize, to find the right solutions. In the end, women can provide help from their financial institutions to access to new marketplaces. With collaboration, financial institutions can collaborate with the marketplaces. Most of the banks has accelerated their digitization, so they have digital platforms. Onboarding of a customer, opening an account is not an issue right now. So it's done like 5 minutes in most of the banks, digitized banks. So time and digital platforms, marketplaces, with data, aggregated data, disaggregated data, customized support for women. And most importantly, supply chain finance within these platforms is, within this marketplace, is an important component, because as micro businesses, they tend to borrow in installment loans, and that jeopardizes their cash flow. In times of fluctuations in the economy, they need to pay the same installment every month. So supply chain finance will provide them on time and prompt financing for their cash flow. So that is an important factor that the bank's FIs should concentrate on. Coming back to the rating models, there is, with the fintechs and with all other newcomers into the market, fintechs, all of them has adapted to behavioral models. I think banks need to enhance their rating models and prevent to look only the previous performance, but also to anticipate the future growth of the market. That's a missing point right now in the rating models of most of the banks, let me say. At the end, I think ecosystem collaboration is very, very critical in that sense. It's government agencies, NGOs, universities, all should work together to make this happen. I think the most important part is collaboration in that sense within a given strategy. I mentioned about all the online digital technologies that will really boost women entrepreneurship from now on. So I think financial institutions can play a pivotal role in bringing the age of opportunities to women entrepreneurs by collaboration with the ecosystem and enabling women entrepreneurs, including them across the supply chains, enabling them access to working capital and also insurance products as an important part of the needs of women entrepreneurs. So that's all from my side, from financial institutions perspective. Of course, I can speak for another half an hour, but due to time constraints, let me finish here.
Thank you very much, Esra, for this very comprehensive and interesting presentation. We received in the meantime the results of the second poll. And actually, so the question was, are financial institutions responsive to the needs of women entrepreneurs? And you can probably see on your screens the results. So only 3.7% of you agreed with little and almost 30% of you disagreed with this statement, while some 40% of you who participated were rather neutral. Maybe Esra, a quick comment on the results.
Yeah, I haven't been able to see in my screen, but you said the majority thinks that financial institutions are?
The majority actually has a neutral position, but some almost 30% disagree with the statement that financial institutions are responsive to the needs of women entrepreneurs.
So either they disagree, or also neutral means also there is no impact. I think from the perspective of financial institutions, we need to do more to address the women market.
If we continue, we have some questions from the participants. So thanks for them. And if we continue on the theme of access to finance, there's a question from David Caro regarding funding for women entrepreneurs. Do you think women are more adverse to risking securities, for example, home, as backing for loans? And if so, how do you suggest this can be overcome? So maybe Esra or also others, you have some ideas.
As we mentioned, most of the women entrepreneurs are in are belonging to micro segments. So their financials are does not, in some economies, it does not reflect the actual position. Because of the, for example, in Turkey, the invoicing is getting better and better each year, but it's again 27% is not registered. So there is a huge unregistered economy. So that's why I think having these hard collaterals like home mortgages and others has been important for the banks to rationalize the wealth accumulated within all these years for the businesses, because banks do not anticipate this in the financials. But as I said, this has to be changed, because the rating models and behavioral models should be much more important. We have a huge data regarding to invoice data, e-invoicing is to gather data from governmental sources, e-invoicing, anticipate, making models on this, and also merchant data is an important indication. Other than collaterals, of course, when there's a long-term investment, collaterals is important. But even for short term, most of the banks require some hard collaterals, and this is really jeopardizing women's access to finance. They are risk averse because they don't want to lose their property, and sometimes, most of the time, they don't have the property to give as a collateral. So that's why I say supply chain finance on time, on prompt, just on the transaction within the B2B e-commerce platforms is a real solution to the finance needs of women.
Good. Helle, do you want to add something?
Yes, I absolutely agree that women would not give up their homes as collateral if they can, because they will be looking to where they're going to live, where their children are going to live, right? Mm-hmm. So for women, the children, if they have children, are the most important thing. If they don't have children, that's a different kettle of fish. But also this kind of leads women to choose a slower growth path. So they would prefer profit before scale. So they use what I would call the small steps principle. So we'll grow the business, we'll make sure that we have black figures on the bottom line, then we'll take the next step. And then we'll wait to grow any further until we have black figures on the bottom line. I think it's a sensible strategy. They're not risking their own money, and they don't want to risk other people's money either. So basically, I think women are a really safe investment for banks. And for financing institutions. So perhaps we could figure out some form, maybe we could learn from developing countries and introduce microloans in some way. Because women would maybe like to borrow smaller amounts. They don't want to borrow millions. So I think we need to try and ask the women, what is it that you need? And then try to tailor our offerings to the women.
That's right. Okay. That's right. I strongly agree.
Maybe we are getting closer to the finish of this session, but maybe we still have time for one more question. And also, I want to show the graphic recordings to all the participants. But just one more question from the audience. So Vera Hoffman is asking, I wonder, after hearing these stories and research, what can we do to change the narrative and stereotypes of successful entrepreneurs, both male and female? So about stereotypes, maybe Anne, you have some ideas?
Yes. So here I think there are two sides to this. So on the side of investors, to realize that their investment decisions are largely due to stereotypes. And therefore, they also need to seek out much more individual level information to try to better assess the quality of entrepreneurial projects that are being presented to them. On the side of individuals who are investors, there are also some ways to counter stereotypes that are being applied to you. There's very interesting research from Columbia Business School that shows, for instance, that in startup fundraising events, men and women entrepreneurs get asked very different sets of questions. So men entrepreneurs, they get questions that are more promotion oriented. They're asked questions such as, prove to us that you're going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg, and kind of, really going towards the growth and really positive stereotype of entrepreneurship. Women, they tend to be asked questions that are more prevention oriented. So more questions along the line of, show us that you're not going to fail. Show us that that you've made everything safe around your business. And women tend to answer in that direction. But when women answer to these questions in a way that is more promotion oriented, they can partly also close the funding gap. So this is not about fixing the women. It's also just understanding that when you are an entrepreneur, you're also with people who might have stereotypes. These stereotypes are not necessarily bad or wrongly intentioned. But I think that as at universities, for instance, but more broadly, we need to be able to better identify how these stereotypes are impacting funding decisions, for instance.
And as a complementary comment to what you have made, financial institutions also should give some training to their front office to better understand the women entrepreneurs.
Yes.
So when they ask too many questions, frontline officers should not get bored, of course, because the behavior is to understand the whole picture, to have a holistic view, and also, as you said, they have to close all the gaps. So it's important to train the frontline officers as well.
Very briefly,
Yes.
briefly, we just need to stop asking women to act like men and accept that women do make different choices. Women do make different decisions. Very often they do so because we have all been through a certain socialization. So it's ingrained in us in some way. So it doesn't help telling women that, okay, you have to start technology businesses if they don't have the background to start technology businesses. And yes, Anne, I do agree that it would be nice if we had more women in technology or in the STEM areas. Actually, I think Southern European countries are quite good at that. Maybe we could learn something from Spain, for example. But we also have to realize that perhaps our societies are constructed in a way that actually leads women towards certain occupations. So it's a mishmash of a lot of things that we actually have to change. But we could start by not asking women just to act like men.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Helle. So I think that now the time has come to do the conclusion of this workshop. So I would first of all like to thank very warmly all the speakers for your excellent contributions. Also, of course, all the participants for being in the workshop and contributing to it, replying to our questions. And I think that all in all, we had a very comprehensive picture of the challenges that women entrepreneurs are facing in this current COVID crisis, and also the possible solutions that could be suggested. And actually, we could talk about the twin challenge, because for women, it's a challenge with they have the challenge with their business that they own, because very often they operate in sectors which are disproportionately affected by the crisis. But it's also a challenge in the, let's say, more private sphere. So as we have heard in the presentations from Helle and Anne, and also others, that it's the additional responsibilities that come and take up much more time. So care responsibilities and other type of responsibilities. And therefore, in the situation where we have a lot of support measures, short-term, long-term measures, we really need to make sure that they address all these different aspects that concern especially women entrepreneurs. The other thing that I would say when I was listening to you is that there are a lot of initiatives and measures undertaken at different levels. I mean, we have regional level, we have national level measures, we have EU level measures. And I think that the important thing is really, as Paloma was saying, to think what these measures and different initiatives mean in concrete terms for women entrepreneurs. Are they ready really to take them on board or benefit from them? And of course, one important thing is that all these initiatives and measures should be brought under one roof. And here I'm mentioning again the WEgate platform, so the European Gateway for Women Entrepreneurship, which really tries to provide this one-stop shop for all types of different information that we have. Starting a business, financing, managing a business, links to support services, so all types of different services, and also a forum where you can showcase the success stories and promote the cooperation. And here, of course, we will be continuously, from the Commission side, we will be continuously developing this WEgate together in very close collaboration and together with stakeholders who give a lot of input to this gateway. And then the third important point was that, of course, there needs to be a continuous awareness raising and bringing different networks together, because there are a lot of initiatives, and the important thing is that we bring these different networks together to discuss these issues. And also, one last point from me is that, of course, it's important that we have inclusive policies. I was saying that the SME strategy is inclusive because it really addresses to all types of companies, all types of SMEs, all entrepreneurs. It's also now the objective of the Commission to integrate this gender perspective in all Commission policies, including the policies for climate change, the policies for digitalization. So this is part of the gender equality strategy that the Commission adopted in March this year. And this, of course, will be an important step forward in really having this more gender-focused aspect, which is mainstreamed in all policies. In particular, these policies that will really help women to run their business in the very new type of economic and social context that we have now. So, with these words, I would still like to thank once more all the speakers, and I hope that we have been able to see now this graphic recording, because I see it on my screen, but I hope that also all the participants can see the results of the graphic recording, which kind of gives a mapping of the different elements that we have discussed in this session, and also makes a kind of a nice summary of this very diverse and rich topic, but tries to summarize it in this couple of figures that you hopefully can see on your screens. Good. So, thank you again for your participation, and of course the work will continue. As I said, the development of WEgate is a continuous process, and also, of course, this mainstreaming of women and gender aspects in all the Commission policies. So, thank you very much.